The power of silence. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but in truth it holds more weight than speech. In silence, the world's noise falls away, and the subtle layers of the mind begin to reveal themselves. You start to hear the space between thoughts, the emotions drifting quietly underneath your actions, and the steady rhythm of life that is always present but rarely noticed. Ancient philosophers understood this well. They would withdraw into solitude, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. In silence, the ego's need to control and explain weakens, and a deeper presence begins to emerge. It is in this state that insight often arrives uninvited, like a guest at your door. Wisdom does not shout, it whispers, but only in silence can you hear it. Silence also teaches patience. When you resist the urge to fill every empty space with words or distractions, you realize how much energy is wasted on noise. Waiting in silence sharpens awareness, like tuning a stringed instrument until the tone becomes clear. To practice silence is not to abandon speech, but to strengthen it. When words finally come, they are fewer, simpler, and more true. They rise not from haste, but from depth. In your own life, notice how often you speak to avoid silence. Notice how you reach for a phone, a song, or a conversation rather than sit still with yourself. If you allow silence to stay, even for a moment, you may find that what you feared was emptiness was actually fullness, waiting to be heard. The weight of time. Time is the one resource no one can bargain for, yet it is also the one most easily ignored. Hours slip into days, days into years, while many live as if they have an endless supply. Ancient thinkers urged people to treat time as more precious than gold. You can regain wealth once it is lost, but a wasted day never returns. The tragedy is that people often realize this only in hindsight, when opportunities are gone and moments that could have been cherished have faded. To treat time with reverence does not mean rushing, nor does it mean filling every second with productivity. It means choosing with care. Every hour you spend is an exchange, a trade of your life energy for something else. When you see this clearly, even simple choices gain weight. Do you give this moment to distraction, or do you invest it in growth, love, or rest? Even leisure, when chosen consciously, becomes valuable. To ignore time is to live asleep, drifting in currents not your own. To respect it is to awaken, to see that every day is a page written into the book of your life. The ancients believed that the wise did not fear death because they had truly lived. They used their time so well that no moment was wasted, and thus nothing was taken from them when the final hour arrived. Reflect often. If today were your last, would you be content with how you spent it? If not, change it now, for time does not belong to you, you belong to it. The gift of attention. Attention is the purest form of currency. Whatever you give it to grows stronger in your life. What you neglect slowly withers. Yet in modern times, attention is scattered, divided into fragments, sold to the highest bidder. To reclaim it is to reclaim yourself. Ancient practices of meditation and prayer were nothing more than the training of attention. To sit with a flame, a mantra, or a breath was to strengthen the mind's ability to stay where it chose, rather than be pulled like a leaf in the wind. The danger of untrained attention is subtle but devastating. You may live a life where your energy is spent entirely on things that bring no meaning, simply because they kept demanding you look their way. You may find yourself chasing endless desires that were never your own. Attention, Like sunlight brings life wherever it rests. If you place it on fear, fear grows. If you place it on gratitude, gratitude expands. When you give it to a person, they feel seen, valued, alive. This is why attention is one of the greatest gifts you can give. It costs nothing, yet it has the power to transform relationships, work, and even your inner peace. To protect your attention is to protect your destiny. Each day, ask yourself, what deserves the light of my mind today, and what does not? Choose with care, for what you attend to becomes what you are. The fragility of desire. Desire promises fulfillment, but often leaves emptiness. Many chase endlessly, believing happiness lies in the next achievement, possession, or recognition. Yet when one desire is met, another quickly replaces it. The chase becomes the pattern, not the prize. Ancient teachers warned that unchecked desire is like drinking salt water. It deepens thirst rather than quenching it. This does not mean to suppress desire completely, for it is part of being alive. Desire can inspire art, discovery, and progress, but when left without reflection, it enslaves. The key lies in seeing desire clearly without being consumed by it. To want something is not wrong. To believe you are incomplete without it is the trap. Many who reach the heights of wealth and power discovered this truth too late, realizing that the inner void cannot be filled with outer objects. True fulfillment often arises not from getting what you want, but from wanting less. Contentment is not the absence of dreams, but the ability to be whole even without them. Ask yourself how many of your desires are truly your own and how many are borrowed from the world's expectations, which bring you peace and which leave you restless. By discerning this, you begin to step outside the cycle. You move from slavery to freedom, not by abandoning desire, but by mastering the illusion of control. Much of human suffering comes from the illusion that we can control everything. We plan, predict, and prepare, yet life continually reminds us that the unexpected has power of its own. Storms arrive uninvited, people change, health falters, opportunities vanish. To cling tightly to control is to live in constant tension, forever at war with reality. Ancient wisdom taught a different path to control only what truly belongs to you, your thoughts, choices, and actions, and to release all else. This is not weakness but strength, for it means no external storm can shake the inner anchor. When you stop fighting what cannot be changed, energy returns to what can be. Imagine two sailors. One fights against the wind, exhausting himself, while the other adjusts his sails, letting the same wind carry him forward. Both face the same storm, but only one reaches the shore with peace. The illusion of control blinds us to this. It makes us believe life owes us certainty, when in truth it offers only possibility. The wise do not demand guarantees. They cultivate resilience. By embracing uncertainty, you stop fearing it. You learn to bend without breaking, to lose without despair, to adapt without losing yourself. This is true freedom, not from chaos, but within it. The wisdom of cycles. Life moves in cycles. Day turns to night. Seasons shift. The moon waxes and wanes. Yet many resist this truth, expecting constant progress, endless growth, or unbroken happiness. Ancient cultures aligned their lives with cycles, understanding that decline is not failure, but part of renewal. Winter is harsh, but it prepares the soil for spring. In your own life, you will meet seasons of abundance and of loss. To expect summer forever is to live in disappointment. but to embrace the turning of cycles is to find peace. There will be times when energy flows, when opportunities open, when relationships flourish, and there will be times when things fall apart, when stillness takes over, when growth is invisible. Both are necessary. Just as the tree cannot always bear fruit, neither can you always be at your peak. Rest, reflection, and even endings are sacred parts of the cycle. To live wisely is not to fight the rhythm of change, but to move with it. If you are in winter, do not despair. Spring is forming beneath the surface. If you are in summer, do not cling. Autumn is already on the horizon. Honor each season, and you will walk in harmony with life itself. The mirror of relationship. Every person you meet is a mirror. Some reflect qualities you admire, others reflect wounds you have not healed. The way you respond reveals more about you than about them. This is why ancient wisdom urged self examination before judgment. When someone angers you, ask, what part of me is being touched? When someone inspires you, ask, what part of me is awakening? Relationships are not random, they are teachers. Friends, lovers, rivals, even strangers, each carries a lesson, whether in patience, trust, forgiveness, or courage. The greatest mirrors are often the most difficult. Those who challenge you, frustrate you, or betray you expose your deepest attachments and fears. To turn away is to miss the lesson, to reflect is to grow. Yet relationships also reveal beauty. They show you how love can expand the self, how kindness multiplies, how joy shared becomes greater than joy alone. The mirror of relationships is not always flattering, but it is always on. If you dare to look, you will see both the wounds you must heal and the strengths you may not have recognized. In this way, every encounter becomes sacred. The treasure of gratitude. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. It is not blind optimism, nor is it denial of suffering. It is the clear recognition that life, even with its flaws, offers gifts too easily overlooked. The breath in your lungs, the food on your table, the people who care for you, the simple beauty of a sunrise, each is a treasure, though many pass them by. Ancient wisdom often linked gratitude to freedom. A grateful heart is harder to enslave by desire or fear because it already sees abundance where others see lack. Gratitude is not only an emotion, but a practice. When cultivated daily, it becomes a lens through which the world is viewed differently. Challenges remain, but they do not consume you. Instead, they are balanced by what still shines. Modern life encourages comparison, urging you to measure yourself against others. Gratitude dissolves this illusion by reminding you of what is uniquely yours. The cup in your hand may not be golden, but it holds water, and that is life itself. Begin and end each day with remembrance of even one small blessing, and you will discover that gratitude is not the result of happiness, but often the cause of the strength of humility. True strength often hides beneath humility. To be humble is not to belittle yourself, but to see yourself clearly, neither inflated nor diminished. It is to recognize that your knowledge, however vast, is still a drop in the ocean. Ancient masters wore humility like armor, for arrogance blinds, but humility sharpens vision. The arrogant person stops learning, believing they already know enough. The humble person learns endlessly, open to lessons from anyone, anywhere. Humility also softens conflict. When you do not need to prove yourself superior, arguments lose their sting. You listen more deeply, and in listening, you understand. This does not mean weakness. In fact, humility requires great confidence. Only those secure in themselves can admit what they do not know. Only the strong can bow without breaking. In a world obsessed with status and recognition, humility is rare, yet it brings peace that pride cannot buy. Imagine a mountain, massive, immovable, yet it does not boast of its height. It simply is. True greatness is like this, silent, steady, unconcerned with applause. When you walk with humility, you become open to wisdom, connected to others, and free from the endless hunger of ego. That is strength, the path of simplicity. Simplicity is not poverty, nor is it the absence of beauty. It is clarity, the stripping away of what is unnecessary, so that what remains is meaningful. Ancient sages often lived simply not because they despised comfort, but because they saw how easily comfort turns into chains. The more you own, the more owns you. Possessions demand care, attention, and fear of loss. Simplicity releases this burden. It creates space, both physical and mental, for what truly matters. A simple life is not empty, it is spacious. In spaciousness, creativity flourishes, relationships deepen, and peace grows. Simplicity also aligns you with nature, which thrives without excess. A tree does not hoard leaves, it sheds them when the season turns. Likewise, a river does not cling to water, it flows, giving and receiving in balance. To embrace simplicity is not to reject the world, but to choose wisely within it. Ask yourself often, what in my life is essential and what is noise? What adds value and what only adds weight? The answers may surprise you. When you walk the path of simplicity, you discover that richness was never about having more, but about needing less. The beauty of patience. Patience is more than waiting. It is the art of trusting that life unfolds in its own rhythm. When you rush, you fight against the natural pace of growth, like pulling at a seedling to make it sprout faster. The result is always harm. Patience does not mean passivity, it means steady presence, the willingness to hold space for things to mature in their own time. The ancients saw patience as a form of strength, for anyone can act quickly, but only the wise can wait without despair. In relationships, patience allows love to deepen instead of burning out too quickly. In work, it turns failures into teachers instead of obstacles. In self growth, it accepts that change comes step by step, not overnight. To practice patience is to live in alignment with cycles you cannot command. It is to breathe when frustration rises, to pause when urgency presses, to trust when uncertainty clouds the path. When you embody patience, life stops feeling like a constant race. It becomes a river, and you learn to flow with it instead of drowning in it. The secret of enough. The endless hunger for more blinds people to the treasure of enough. Enough is not a small thing. It is the moment when the heart recognizes that what you already have can sustain you. Modern culture teaches that success means accumulation, but ancient wisdom reminds us that abundance lies in sufficiency. To have enough food, enough warmth, enough love, enough peace. This is wealth beyond measure. The tragedy is that many pass through life never reaching enough, always running after the next milestone, the next possession, the next recognition. Enough is a state of mind, not a number. Two people can stand side by side with equal fortune. One feels rich, the other poor. The difference lies not in what they own, but in whether they recognize sufficiency. When you realize you already have enough, craving loosens its grip, and gratitude quietly takes its place. Life becomes lighter, freer, and unexpectedly more joyful. The balance of giving and receiving. Life thrives on balance, and nowhere is this clearer than in the exchange of giving and receiving. To give without measure eventually empties you. To receive without giving eventually hardens you. Both extremes lead to imbalance, but when giving and receiving dance together, harmony arises. Ancient communities understood this deeply. Feasts were shared, not hoarded. Work was collective, not isolated. To give was not a loss, but a way to strengthen the whole. Yet they also recognize that receiving is an act of humility, an acknowledgement that you too need the support of others. Modern life often praises independence, but independence without connection is loneliness. True wealth lies in reciprocity. When you give with openness and receive with gratitude, bonds deepen. Energy circulates, trust grows, and no one walks burdened alone. Ask yourself often, do I allow myself to both give and to receive? If either is missing, seek balance, for balance is life's language. The freedom of letting go. Much suffering comes from holding too tightly to possessions, to people, to beliefs, even to identities. Letting go feels like loss, yet often it is the only path to freedom. To release what no longer serves you is to make room for what is waiting to arrive. Imagine a hand clenched around a stone. No matter how small the stone, as long as you grip it, your hand cannot open to anything else. Ancient teachings urged people to practice release, to see that impermanence is not a curse, but a natural law. Everything changes, rivers shift, stars die, seasons turn. To fight this is to exhaust yourself against inevitability. Letting go is not forgetting, nor is it indifference. It is acceptance, the quiet recognition that holding on cannot stop the flow of time. When you let go, you do not lose. You gain peace, space, and clarity. The depth of listening is not the same as hearing. Hearing registers sound, but listening touches meaning. True listening requires presence, the willingness to set aside your own story long enough to enter another's. Ancient storytellers knew this, for their wisdom lived not in their voice, but in the ears of those who listened. When you truly listen, people feel seen. They open, soften, and reveal what they might otherwise keep hidden. Listening is also a practice with yourself. How often do you silence your own inner voice with distractions, obligations, or noise? Within you lives a quiet teacher, but it speaks only when you listen. To cultivate listening is to honor both others and yourself. It creates connection, dissolves conflict, and reveals truths that words alone could never carry. The shadow of fear. Fear is a natural companion of life, yet when left unchecked, it builds cages where none exist. Ancient traditions taught that fear is not to be destroyed, but understood. Fear is a messenger. It shows where you are vulnerable, where you care, where you need courage. But if you mistake the messenger for the master, fear begins to rule your choices. You avoid risks, silence your voice, shrink your dreams. The tragedy is that most fears are illusions, shadows cast larger than the objects that make them. To walk with fear wisely is to see its shadow without bowing to it. You acknowledge the trembling, then act anyway. Each time you face fear, its shadow grows smaller and your freedom grows larger. The light of kindness. Kindness is the simplest act, yet its impact reaches further than most realize. A word, a gesture, a small act of compassion can ripple through lives unseen, carrying comfort long after you forget it. Ancient wisdom regarded kindness as a sacred duty, for the health of a community depended on the generosity of its members. But kindness also transforms the giver. Each act softens the heart, dissolves bitterness, and reminds you of your shared humanity. In a world where cruelty often shouts, kindness whispers steadily, refusing to disappear. To live with kindness is not to be naive, nor to deny injustice. It is to meet life with a spirit that chooses healing over harm, connection over division. Even the smallest kindness can be enough to shift the weight of a day, for yourself or for another. The strength of adaptability. Rigid branches snap in the storm, but flexible ones bend and survive. Adaptability has always been a mark of wisdom. It is not betrayal of your principles, but the recognition that life is larger than your plans. Ancient sailors did not curse the wind for changing, they adjusted their sails. Likewise, you cannot command the world, but you can choose how you move with it. Adaptability allows you to endure loss, to pivot in difficulty, to discover opportunity where others see only endings. Those who cling rigidly to one path often break when the ground shifts. Those who adapt walk steadily, even through chaos. Flexibility is not weakness, it is resilience in motion. The fire of curiosity. Curiosity is the beginning of wisdom. It is the refusal to let mystery remain untouched, the hunger to ask why, how, and what if. Children embody this fire naturally, but adults often extinguish it under the weight of routine and certainty. Ancient scientists, philosophers, and poets all shared one trait: they never stopped wondering. Curiosity opens doors where certainty builds walls. It invites discovery, deepens understanding, and keeps the spirit alive. To be curious is to admit you do not know, and this humility leads to endless learning. Without curiosity, knowledge stagnates. With it, even ordinary moments glow with possibility. Keep asking, keep exploring, keep the fire alive. The path of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past, it is about freeing the present. To carry resentment is to chain yourself to the very thing that hurt you. The burden grows heavier with time, shaping your thoughts, your choices, your future. Forgiveness does not excuse harm, nor does it demand reconciliation. It is the act of releasing yourself from the grip of anger. Ancient traditions often saw forgiveness as a form of cleansing, a way to unburden the soul so it could walk lighter. When you forgive, you reclaim your energy. You choose peace over poison. And while forgiveness may not change the past, it transforms your relationship to it. The wound becomes a scar, still visible, but no longer painful to touch. The illusion of possession. Everything you claim to own is in truth only borrowed. The clothes you wear will fade, the house you live in will one day belong to another. Even the body you call your own will eventually return to the earth. Possession is temporary by nature, yet people cling as if permanence were guaranteed. Ancient teachings often reminded that ownership is an illusion. You do not own the world, you are entrusted with it for a time. When you see this clearly, attachment softens. You care for what you have without becoming enslaved by it. You enjoy beauty without fearing its loss. True freedom lies not in what you possess, but in your ability to walk lightly, knowing nothing truly belongs to you, yet everything can be cherished. The quiet of nature. Nature is the oldest teacher. Yet its lessons often go unheard. In the whisper of leaves, the stillness of mountains, the rhythm of tides, wisdom waits patiently. To walk in a forest is to be reminded of cycles, balance, and resilience. Trees do not hurry their growth. Rivers carve valleys not through force, but through persistence. The sky accepts both storm and sunlight without resistance. Ancient people lived in tune with these lessons, shaping their lives by the patterns of the natural world. Modern life often distances us from them, but the invitation remains. When you pause to listen, nature speaks in silence, reminding you that you too are part of a larger whole. The gift of memory. Memory is both treasure and burden. It carries the sweetness of joy, long past, but also the weight of pain, not yet healed. Ancient wisdom taught that memory should not be worshipped nor feared. It is a guide, not a master. When you dwell too deeply in memory, you lose the present. Yet when you ignore it completely, you lose your roots. To remember wisely is to honor the past without becoming imprisoned by it. Every memory, joyful or sorrowful, shaped the path that brought you here. See them not as chains, but as markers, reminders of lessons learned, love received, and resilience built. The mystery of dreams. Dreams have always fascinated the human spirit. They blur the line between reality and imagination, revealing landscapes that feel both foreign and familiar. Ancient cultures saw dreams as messages from the gods, from the ancestors, or from the hidden self. Whether literal or symbolic, dreams remind us that the mind is deeper than waking thought. Within dreams, unspoken desires surface, fears take shape, and truths we avoid in daylight find voice in the dark. Though science still cannot fully explain them, dreams remind us that mystery is not meant to be solved completely. Some parts of life are to be lived, not decoded. To honor your dreams is to honor the vast unknown within yourself. The anchor of purpose. Without purpose, even the greatest comfort feels empty. With purpose, even hardship carries meaning. Ancient philosophies often began with the question, why are you here? Purpose does not always arrive as a grand mission. Sometimes it whispers as a simple pull toward what matters most. It may shift as you grow, but its presence steadies you through storms. Purpose turns suffering into endurance, struggle into growth, and effort into offering. Without it, time feels wasted, days blur, and life becomes a restless. To discover your purpose is not to invent it from nothing, but to uncover what was already calling from within. The burden of comparison. Comparison robs you of peace. It convinces you that your worth is measured against another's path, forgetting that no two journeys are the same. Ancient wisdom warned that envy blinds you to your own blessings. To look constantly outward is to miss the richness already within. The truth is simple. Someone will always have more. Someone will always have less. If your happiness depends on this endless race, you will never arrive. Freedom begins when you stop measuring your life by others' standards and start walking your own road with clarity. The strength of restraint. Power is not shown in indulgence, but in restraint. To hold back when anger surges, to pause when desire tempts, to choose silence when words could wound. This is true mastery. Ancient warriors were taught that the strongest weapon is control of the self. A person who cannot restrain their impulses becomes a servant to them. Restraint is not suppression, but direction, the ability to channel energy wisely rather than wastefully. It is the pause before reaction, the breath before decision, the calm in the face of provocation. Through restraint, you gain freedom, the freedom to act, not out of impulse, but out of wisdom. The light of truth. Truth can be heavy, but lies are heavier still. To live in falsehood may bring temporary comfort, but it builds a fragile life that cracks under pressure. Truth, though difficult, creates foundations that endure. Ancient seekers believed that truth was not just honesty with others, but honesty with oneself, seeing clearly without distortion. Many suffer not because of reality itself, but because of the illusions they weave around it. Truth liberates, even when it hurts. To face it is to stand firmly in what is real, no longer wasting energy, maintaining a mask. In truth lies both peace and power, the flow of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not joy, not pain, not even life itself. This truth, though simple, is one of the hardest to accept. Ancient wisdom traditions placed impermanence at the heart of their teachings, urging people to embrace change rather than resist it. Impermanence is not tragedy, it is what makes life precious. A flower would not be beautiful if it bloomed forever. A moment would not matter if it could be repeated endlessly. To resist impermanence is to cling to shadows. To embrace it is to discover freedom in the fleeting. Each breath, each glance, each day is unrepeatable, and because of that, priceless. The radiance of joy. Joy is not the same as pleasure. Pleasure is fleeting, often dependent on circumstances. Joy arises deeper, sometimes even in the midst of difficulty. Ancient wisdom described joy as the natural state of a clear mind and an open heart. It is not found by chasing it, but by creating space for it to surface. Joy comes in moments of presence, a laugh shared, a sunrise witnessed, a task completed with care. When you live in constant pursuit, joy escapes. When you slow, notice, and open, joy returns. It is not something to be earned, it is something to be remembered. The courage of vulnerability. To be vulnerable is often seen as weakness, yet it is one of the greatest acts of courage. It is the willingness to be seen as you are, without armor or disguise. Ancient traditions taught that true connection requires vulnerability, for without it, relationships remain shallow and guarded. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you invite authenticity in yourself and in others. It is not recklessness, it is the strength to say, "This is me," even when rejection is possible. Vulnerability opens the door to love, trust, and growth. Without it, life may feel safe, but it remains empty. To be vulnerable is to risk, but also to truly live. The strength of stillness. Stillness is not inactivity, it is depth. In a world obsessed with motion, stillness feels unnatural, yet it is where clarity resides. Ancient sages withdrew into stillness not to escape life, but to see it more clearly. In stillness, the mind stops chasing, the body softens, and insight arises naturally. It is in moments of stillness that decisions become clearer, emotions settle, and creativity blossoms. To practice stillness is to cultivate an inner sanctuary, a place no storm can disturb. Even a few breaths of stillness can shift the course of a day. The value of failure. Failure is not the opposite of success, it is its foundation. Every great discovery, invention, or achievement has been built upon countless failures. Ancient stories of heroes were not tales of perfection, but of persistence, of falling, rising, and learning. Failure reveals what does not work, shaping the path toward what does. Yet many fear it, avoiding risk and growth. To see failure as teacher is to turn pain into wisdom. Each mistake carries a lesson, and each lesson brings you closer to mastery. Those who never fail rarely attempt anything worthwhile. The wisdom of the body. The body is not separate from the mind, it is its companion and teacher. Ancient traditions honored the body as sacred, recognizing that health of spirit depended on care of flesh. How your body speaks constantly through tension, fatigue, hunger, and pain, yet many ignore its voice until illness forces attention. To listen to the body is to live in harmony with yourself. Nourishment, rest, movement, and breath are not luxuries, but foundation. A clear body supports a clear mind. By honoring your body, you honor the vessel that carries you through this life. The horizon of perspective. Perspective is the lens through which reality is seen. Change the lens, and the world itself changes. Ancient wisdom urged stepping outside one's narrow view to see more broadly. What feels like catastrophe in one moment may, from a higher vantage, reveal itself as a necessary turning point. Perspective transforms burdens into teachers and obstacles into paths. The same event can either crush or strengthen depending on how it is viewed. To seek perspective is not to deny pain, but to place it in context. It is to remember that today's storm may water tomorrow's harvest. The gift of presence. Presence is the art of being fully where you are. The mind often wanders to the past with regret, to the future with worry, but presence gathers it back to the only place life exists now. Ancient practices of breath and awareness were designed to cultivate presence. When you are present, even simple acts, eating, walking, listening, become profound. Relationships deepen, creativity flows, and peace settles. To live in presence is to stop missing your own life. For moments do not wait, they pass, whether you are there for them or not. The danger of pride blinds. It convinces you that you are above correction, beyond error, untouchable in knowledge or status. Ancient tales are filled with warnings of pride's downfall, for arrogance often precedes collapse. Pride builds walls that isolate you from others and from truth. Humility opens doors that pride keeps shut. To take pride in effort is natural, but when pride hardens into arrogance, it becomes poison. The antidote is awareness, to remember that all you have can change, and all you know is only a fragment. Pride seeks applause, wisdom seeks truth. The rhythm of breath. Breath is life's simplest miracle, yet it is the one most forgotten. Ancient practices of meditation, prayer, and healing all began with breath. To breathe consciously is to anchor yourself in the present, to calm the mind, and restore balance to the body. The breath carries you from birth to death, silently sustaining every moment. When emotions rise, when thoughts race, when fear overwhelms, return to breath, slow it, notice it, honor it. In doing so, you reconnect with the rhythm of life itself, a rhythm always within reach. The gift of service. Service is the act of giving without expectation, of offering time, effort, or care not for recognition, but for the good of another. Ancient cultures saw service as sacred, the glue that held communities together. To serve is not to diminish yourself, but to expand beyond the boundaries of self interest. Service reminds you that your life is not separate from others, that your actions ripple outward. When you serve, you step into connection, humility, and The reward is not wealth or praise, but the quiet joy of knowing you contributed to something greater than yourself. The path of self knowledge. To know the world yet ignore yourself is to remain lost. Ancient wisdom placed self knowledge at the center of life, for without it, choices are blind and actions misguided. Self knowledge is not only awareness of strengths, but also of flaws, wounds, and patterns. It requires honesty, patience, and courage. To know yourself is to uncover your true motives, your hidden fears, and your deepest values. With self knowledge comes clarity, clarity about what matters, what to release, and how to walk your path. The journey inward is endless, but with each step, the outer world makes more sense. The weight of words. Words are not light. Once spoken, they carry power to heal, to wound, to inspire, or to destroy. Ancient traditions reminded that words were sacred, for they shape thought, and thought shapes reality. Careless speech can fracture trust in a moment, while a single word of encouragement can stay with someone for a lifetime. Silence often carries more wisdom than words spoken in haste. To use words wisely is to treat them as tools, not weapons. Speak truth when it matters, kindness when it heals, and silence when it protects. In this way, your words become bridges, not barriers. The gift of solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the ache of disconnection. Solitude is the richness of connection with yourself. Ancient sages sought solitude as a path to clarity, retreating from noise to hear the quiet truths of the soul. In solitude, masks fall away. You no longer perform for others, you simply exist as you are. At first, solitude may feel uncomfortable, for it removes distractions that shield you from yourself. But with time, it becomes a sanctuary, a place where creativity deepens, reflection sharpens, and peace grows. To spend time in solitude is to remember who you are without the world's demand. The nature of change. Change is the constant most resist, yet life has never promised stability. It has only promised motion. Ancient wisdom urged embracing change, for it is the essence of growth. Without change, rivers would stagnate, seeds would never sprout, and people would never evolve. Change brings loss, but it also brings possibility. To cling to what is gone is to suffer. To flow with change is to transform. Every ending is also a beginning, though not always one you expected. Trusting change means trusting life itself, for the two are inseparable. The wealth of learning. Learning is the treasure that cannot be stolen, lost, or exhausted. Ancient cultures valued knowledge above gold, for knowledge could rebuild what wealth destroyed. True learning is not confined to books or schools. It comes from observation, reflection, and open. Every person you meet, every challenge you face carries a lesson if you are willing to see it. To remain a learner throughout life is to remain alive in spirit. The mind that refuses to learn grows rigid, but the mind that learns continually remains young, curious, and adaptable. The quiet force of consistency. Greatness is rarely the product of bursts of effort. It is built in the quiet repetition of small acts over time. Ancient wisdom taught that discipline and consistency outlast talent and brilliance. A tree does not grow tall in a day, but in steady rings, year after year. Likewise, the habits you repeat become the life you live. Consistency requires patience, for results often hide until they suddenly appear. But once they do, they carry the weight of all the small moments that came before. To commit to consistency is to commit to transformation. The strength of hope. Hope is not naive dreaming. It is the force that allows people to endure when all else fails. Ancient stories are filled with characters who survived not because they were the strongest, but because they held to hope when others surrendered. Hope is a flame, sometimes faint, sometimes bright, but always capable of lighting the darkness. To carry hope is to believe that the present struggle is not the final word. It is not denial of pain, but trust that beyond pain lies possibility. Even in despair, hope whispers, continue. The value of wonder. Wonder is the antidote to boredom, cynicism, and despair. It is the awe that arises when you look at the stars, when you hold a newborn, when you realize the vastness of existence. Ancient traditions cultivated wonder as a way of touching the divine. Wonder humbles the mind and expands the heart. It reminds you that life is larger than your worries, richer than your plans, and deeper than your understanding. To live without wonder is to sleepwalk. To live with wonder is to awaken again and again to the miracle of being alive. The gift of laughter. Laughter is medicine older than any healer. It softens sorrow, dissolves conflict, and binds people together in joy. Ancient cultures saw laughter not as frivolity, but as a sign of vitality. To laugh is to remind yourself not to take existence too seriously. Even in hardship, laughter can pierce through heaviness, giving relief where logic cannot. Laughter shared multiplies, it builds connection beyond words. When you laugh freely, you give permission for others to do the same. In a world often heavy with burden, laughter remains one of the simplest and purest acts of freedom. The danger of greed. Greed is hunger without end. It consumes not only possessions but also peace, for it convinces you that nothing is ever enough. Ancient wisdom warned that greed destroys not only the greedy, but also the community around them. Greed blinds, making abundance invisible and turning blessings into burdens. It is not wrong to seek comfort or success, but when the chase becomes endless, life slips away unnoticed. The cure for greed is not denial, but gratitude. When you see clearly what you already have, the grip of greed weakens, and contentment returns. The silence of death. Death is the truth all must face, yet it is the truth most avoid. Ancient cultures did not hide from death, they honored it as the great teacher. To remember death is not to live in fear, but to live more full. When you recognize that your time is limited, trivial worries lose their hold, and the value of each day sharpens. Death reminds you that life is precious, that love must be spoken, and that meaning must be chosen. To live with awareness of death is not morbid, it is to live awake, no longer asleep in illusion. The path of compassion. Compassion is the bridge between yourself and others. It is more than sympathy. It is the ability to feel another's pain as if it were your own and to respond with care rather than judgment. Ancient wisdom regarded compassion as the highest form of strength, for it softens anger, heals division, and reminds us of our shared humanity. Compassion does not mean excusing harm, nor does it mean neglecting yourself. It is the choice to see the person beyond their mistakes, to understand the wound beneath their actions. To live with compassion is to widen the circle of belonging, making space for all who suffer. The beauty of imperfection. Perfection is an illusion. The world itself is full of cracks, flaws, and asymmetries, yet within them lies beauty. Ancient artisans would sometimes leave deliberate imperfections in their work, believing that only the divine could be flawless. To demand perfection of yourself or others is to invite endless disappointment. Imperfection is not failure, it is character. It tells the story of growth, of effort, of humanity. To embrace imperfection is to release the heavy chains of comparison and to find peace in the real, not the ideal. Beauty lives not in flawlessness, but in authenticity, the strength of integrity. Integrity is alignment, when words, actions, and values flow together. Without integrity, even the most successful life feels hollow. Ancient teachings valued integrity as the measure of a person, greater than wealth or status. To act with integrity means to remain true even when no one is watching, even when the cost is high. Integrity may not bring quick rewards, but it brings lasting respect, trust, and inner peace. When you walk in integrity, you carry a quiet strength that cannot be taken from you. The practice of detachment. Detachment is not indifference. It is the ability to engage fully without becoming enslaved by outcome. Ancient wisdom taught that suffering arises not from events themselves, but from clinging to them. Detachment allows you to act with clarity, to love without possession, to work without obsession. When you practice detachment, you still care deeply, but you do not confuse control with connection. You release the need for things to be permanent, and in that release, you find freedom. The treasure of curved paths. Few journeys are straight. Ancient travelers knew that roads bend, twist, and sometimes double back before reaching their destination. Life follows the same pattern. Goals may take years longer than expected. Dreams may shift or transform along the way. To expect a straight path is to grow frustrated. To honor the curve is to remain patient. Each detour carries lessons. Each delay deepens resilience. In time, you may look back and see that the curved path brought you exactly where you were meant to be. The flame of discipline. Discipline is the fire that shapes potential into reality. Talent without discipline remains dormant, like unlit wood. Ancient warriors, poets, and philosophers alike trained discipline daily, for they knew that freedom is born from structure. Discipline is not harshness, but devotion, the steady choice to do what must be done, even when it is not easy. It transforms chaos into order, dreams into practice, and effort into achievement. Without discipline, the mind scatters. With it, focus sharpens, and life gains direction. The depth of silence with others, silence shared, is as powerful as words exchanged. Ancient gatherings often held moments of collective silence, where connection was felt not through speech, but through presence. In silence, pretenses fade, and true understanding emerges. To sit in silence with someone without discomfort is a sign of deep trust. It is a reminder that love and companionship do not always need words. Sometimes presence is enough. The power of ritual. Rituals anchor the flow of time. They transform ordinary moments into sacred ones. Ancient cultures marked beginnings and endings, births and deaths, harvests and seasons, with ritual reminding people of the deeper meaning within life's cycles. Ritual does not have to be elaborate. Lighting a candle, sharing a meal, or pausing in gratitude can all become rituals when performed with intention. Ritual creates continuity, connecting you with the past and grounding you in the present. It turns repetition into reverence. The gift of curiosity about others. To be curious about others is to see beyond the surface. Ancient travelers carried stories from distant lands, reminding their people that every person holds a world of their own. When you ask questions, listen deeply, and seek to understand, you expand your own world. Curiosity about others dissolves judgment and builds empathy. It reveals that beneath differences of culture, language, or belief, there beats the same human heart. The circle of life. Everything in life participates in a circle. What is born will die, and what dies gives way to birth. Ancient traditions saw death not as an end, but as a return, a transformation that nourishes the next cycle. The fallen leaf becomes soil. The decayed fruit feeds the seed. Even in your own life, endings carry beginnings within them. To see life as a circle is to release the fear of change and embrace the eternal rhythm. Nothing is truly lost, it only shifts form. The weight of choices. Every choice you make is a seed planted in the soil of your life. Some seeds grow quickly, others take years to bear fruit, but all shape the garden you walk through tomorrow. Ancient teachings reminded that destiny is not some distant fate, but the accumulation of countless small choices made each day. To choose with awareness is to shape your life consciously. To choose carelessly is to drift wherever the wind blows. No choice is insignificant, for even the smallest has ripple effects you may not see. When you pause before deciding, you honor the power that rests quietly in your hand. The gift of rest. Rest is not idleness, it is renewal. Just as the earth needs winter to prepare for spring, so too does the body and mind need stillness to gather strength. Ancient wisdom placed equal value on work and rest, seeing both as necessary for balance. To push endlessly without rest is to wear yourself thin, to burn out the flame that sustains you. Rest sharpens clarity, restores energy, and deepens creativity. In a world that glorifies exhaustion, rest becomes a radical act of self respect. It is not wasted time, but the foundation of endurance, the power of intention. Intention is the quiet force behind action. Two people may perform the same act, yet the intention beneath it makes all the difference. Ancient rituals emphasized intention because they understood that the heart's motive shapes the outcome. To act without intention is to move blindly. To act with intention is to move with purpose. Even the smallest task, sharing a meal, writing a word, taking a breath, changes when done with awareness of why it is done. Intention transforms action into meaning and meaning into legacy. The call of curiosity within. Curiosity is not only for the outer world, it is also for the inner. Ancient seekers turned their gaze inward, asking questions of the soul. Who am I? What do I value? What fears drive me? What dreams call me? Curiosity about yourself is not self obsession, but self discovery. It allows you to uncover hidden motives, forgotten strengths, and neglected wounds. Without this curiosity, you risk living on the surface of your own life. With it, you deepen, becoming more honest, more whole. The value of contentment. Contentment is not the absence of ambition, it is the ability to be at peace while still growing. Ancient wisdom often praised contentment as the highest form of wealth, for it freed people from the endless hunger for more. To be content is not to stop striving, but to stop suffering from what you lack. It is to enjoy what is already here while welcoming what may come. Contentment transforms ordinary days into treasures and small moments into gifts. It is the quiet joy of knowing that now is enough. The danger of distraction. Distraction steals life quietly. It does not demand loudly, but it dissolves attention piece by piece until years pass unnoticed. Ancient traditions warned against scattering the mind, for a distracted person cannot see clearly, choose wisely, or live fully. Distraction often masquerades as busyness, leaving you feeling productive while keeping you from what matters most. To guard against distraction is to reclaim your life. It is to say no to noise and yes to depth. Focus is the antidote, the act of choosing deliberately where your energy flows. The anchor of ritual in daily life. Daily rituals, no matter how simple, bring grounding. Ancient people greeted the sun, honored meals, or paused at nightfall to reflect. These acts gave rhythm and meaning to ordinary time. In modern life, small rituals, a morning pause, a journal entry, a cup of tea, savored in silence, can serve the same purpose. Ritual creates continuity amid chaos. It reminds you that even in a changing world, you can choose anchors that steady you. The quiet wisdom of listening to elders. Elders carry memory of struggles endured, lessons learned, mistakes made, and survived. Ancient societies revered their elders not for power, but for perspective. To listen to those who walked before you is to glimpse roads ahead. Their wisdom may not always match your era, but it carries patterns that repeat through time. In dismissing elders, you risk repeating their mistakes. In listening, you inherit guidance without the same cost. Elders remind us that wisdom is not only in books, but in lived experience. The power of names. Names carry weight. In ancient traditions, names were chosen with care, believed to shape destiny, character, or role. To know someone's true name was to know their essence. Even today, names matter, the ones you are given and the ones you give yourself. The labels you accept can either confine you or empower you. To call yourself weak, unworthy, or broken is to plant those words as seeds. To call yourself resilient, capable, or whole is to water different soil. Choose names wisely, for they echo within. The mystery of the unseen. Not everything real can be measured. Ancient wisdom honored the unseen, love, faith, intuition, spirit. These forces, though invisible, often shape life more deeply than what can be weighed or touched. To ignore the unseen is to reduce life to surfaces. To honor it is to recognize that mystery is part of reality. Whether you call it soul, energy, or simply wonder, the unseen reminds us that life's greatest truths often lie beyond the reach of the eye. The gift of generosity. Generosity is not measured by size, but by spirit. A coin given with love may outweigh a fortune given with pride. Ancient cultures placed generosity at the heart of community, believing that what you give returns in unseen ways. To be generous is to loosen the grip of scarcity, to trust that sharing does not diminish, but multiplies. Generosity expands not only the receiver's life, but the giver's heart. It is the quiet reminder that abundance is not what you hold, but what you release. The patience of the earth. The earth moves slowly, yet with certainty. Mountains rise, rivers carve valleys, forests renew after fire. Ancient people honored the patience of the earth, seeing in it a reflection of endurance. In a human life, patience with yourself mirrors the patience of nature. Growth takes time. Healing takes time. Understanding takes time. When you allow yourself the same patience the earth gives to all things, you walk in harmony with reality rather than in struggle against it. The power of story. Stories shape worlds. They carry wisdom across generations, keeping alive lessons that facts alone cannot hold. Ancient myths were not just entertainment, they were maps of meaning, guiding communities through life's mysteries. Your own life is shaped by the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you can do, and what the world is. Change the story, and the path shifts. To choose your story wisely is to choose the future you step into. The shadow of envy. Envy poisons quietly. It convinces you that someone else's blessing diminishes your own, that happiness is a limited resource you were denied. Ancient wisdom warned that envy blinds you to your own gifts, leaving you restless even when surrounded by abundance. The cure is gratitude and admiration. To turn envy into inspiration is to transform poison into medicine. Another's light does not dim yours. It shows that light is possible. The freedom of simplicity in words. The simplest words often carry the deepest truths. Ancient proverbs endured because they stripped wisdom to its essence, leaving no decoration, only clarity. Complexity can obscure, but simplicity illuminates. In your own speech, simplicity creates trust. To speak plainly with honesty and care is to honor both yourself and the listener. In simplicity, truth becomes easier to hear and harder to deny. The value of awe at the night sky. To look at the stars is to remember perspective. Ancient peoples read the sky as scripture, finding guidance in constellations, calendars in movements, and humility in its vastness. The night sky whispers the same lesson today. Your troubles, though heavy now, are small against the infinite. Awe dissolves ego and replaces it with wonder. To spend even a moment beneath the stars is to remember that life is larger than you, and yet you are part of that immensity. The courage of honesty. Honesty is difficult because it strips away masks. Yet without honesty, trust crumbles and connection weakens. Ancient traditions honored truth telling as sacred, for lies fracture not only relationships, but the soul. Honesty begins within, seeing yourself clearly, without excuse or illusion. From there, honesty with others flows more naturally. It may bring discomfort, but it also brings freedom. When you live honestly, you no longer waste energy maintaining falsehoods. You walk lighter, clearer, stronger. The wisdom of waiting. Waiting is often seen as weakness, but it is a hidden strength. Ancient farmers knew this well. Seeds do not grow faster by impatience, they follow their own rhythm. Life also has seasons of waiting for clarity, for healing, for opportunity. To wait well is to remain present, preparing without forcing. Waiting teaches humility, for it reminds you that not all things are under your command. When the right time comes, action flows easily. Until then, waiting is its own kind of work, the gift of lived experience. Books and teachings can guide, but lived experience transforms. Ancient wisdom was passed down not only in words, but in rituals, journeys, and trials, so that knowledge became embodied. Experience carves understanding into the soul in ways nothing else can. Mistakes, hardships, joys, each leaves marks that shape who you are. To honor your experiences, even the painful ones, is to recognize them as teachers. Each step has carried you to now, and each step ahead will deepen the story. The horizon beyond self. The self is important, but it is not the whole. Ancient traditions often spoke of dissolving the small self into something greater, community, nature, or the divine. To live only for yourself is to live in a small circle. Beyond self lies connection, purpose, and belonging to something larger. When you expand beyond the narrow borders of ego, life gains depth. You see that your existence is part of a vast web, and in serving it, you serve yourself as well. The river of forgiveness. Forgiveness is like a river. It clears what is stagnant and allows life to move again. Ancient traditions compared resentment to a dam that blocks the flow of spirit. The longer you hold it, the heavier the waters grow, pressing against you until you. Forgiveness does not excuse harm. It releases you from being chained to it. It allows grief to soften, anger to loosen, and healing to enter. Like a river, forgiveness moves slowly at first, but once it begins, it carries peace with it. The gift of wonder in small things. Not all wisdom lies in the grand. Sometimes it is found in the curve of a shell, the fragrance of bread, the laughter of a child. Ancient sages taught that life's meaning is not always revealed in visions or revelations, but in the ordinary made sacred through attention. To notice small wonders is to train the heart to gratitude. When you live only for the grand, life feels lacking. When you awaken to the small, life feels abundant. The freedom of acceptance. Acceptance is not surrender to defeat, it is recognition of reality. Ancient teachings drew a line between pain, which life gives, and suffering, which resistance creates. To accept what is beyond your control is to release unnecessary struggle. It does not mean you stop striving, but you stop demanding that the world be different before you can find peace. Acceptance frees energy for what can be shaped and softens the weight of what cannot. The strength of persistence. Persistence is steady power, the quiet refusal to stop when the path is long. Ancient tales are filled with heroes who triumphed not because they were fastest or strongest, but because they endured when others gave up. Persistence is not blind stubbornness, it is faith in the worth of the journey. Each step may feel small, but together they carve mountains into valleys. Persistence teaches that progress often hides until suddenly revealed. Those who persist discover treasures unseen by those who quit too soon. The gift of listening to silence in nature. The silence of a forest, a desert, or a mountain is never truly empty. It holds whispers of wind, the subtle rustle of leaves, the distant call of animals. Ancient people sought these silences as places of revelation. To sit in nature's silence is to hear the pulse of the world without human interference. It slows the mind, softens anxiety, and opens the soul to something larger. In these silences, you rediscover your own place in the greater whole. The illusion of ownership over time. People often say, my time, yet time never belongs to anyone. Ancient thinkers reminded that time flows regardless of your will. You cannot own it, only move within it. The illusion of ownership makes you careless, as if hours can be wasted without cost. But once gone, no time returns. To see time clearly is to treat each day as borrowed, a gift to be used wisely. When you stop believing you own time, you begin to honor it. The wisdom of gratitude in hardship. Gratitude is easy in abundance, but transformative in hardship. Ancient prayers often included thanks even for trials, for they understood that difficulty forges strength. To find gratitude in pain is not denial, it is resilience. It is seeing the lesson hidden within the struggle, the clarity born of loss, the compassion grown from your own wounds. Gratitude in hardship does not erase sorrow, but it prevents despair. It allows you to walk through darkness with a light still burning. The power of attention to the present meal, eating was once ritual. Ancient people gave thanks before food, seeing it as a gift from earth, sun, and labor. Today, meals are often rushed, consumed in distraction. Yet when you bring attention to a single meal, its flavors, its textures, the journey of its ingredients, you awaken to life's interconnectedness. To eat with presence is to honor not only the food, but also the hands and forces that brought it. It turns nourishment into reverence, the gift of wonder at birth and death. Birth and death are the two gateways all must pass, yet both are wrapped in mystery. Ancient cultures treated them with reverence, recognizing them as thresholds between worlds. To witness birth is to see possibility unfold. To witness death is to see life's fragility and depth. Both awaken awe, reminding us that existence itself is extraordinary. To live with awareness of these gateways is to walk with humility, gratitude, and reverence for the fleeting gift of life, the horizon of legacy. Legacy is not only what you leave behind in wealth or monuments, but what you plant in the hearts of others. Ancient wisdom urged people to ask, what traces will remain when my body is gone? Every act of kindness, every lesson taught, every love given continues beyond you. Legacy is not about fame, it is about influence. Even a quiet life can ripple through generations if lived with care. The question is not if you leave a legacy, but what kind it will be. The power of self discipline. Self discipline is the quiet strength that shapes a life. Without it, dreams remain ideas. With it, they become reality. Ancient traditions trained discipline not as punishment, but as freedom, for the disciplined mind and body are not ruled by impulse. Discipline allows you to align action with intention, to rise when you would rather sleep, to persist when you would rather quit. It is the companion of mastery, the root of consistency, and the foundation of integrity. The mystery of intuition. Intuition is the whisper beneath thought, the knowing that arrives without explanation. Ancient wisdom honored intuition as the voice of the soul, a guidance that reason alone cannot provide. Intuition does not shout, it nudges, tugs, hints. To ignore it is to silence part of yourself. To listen is to open to deeper wisdom. Intuition may not always lead where expected, but it often leads where necessary. Trusting it is an act of courage and of self respect. The gift of play. Play is not only for children, it is the natural expression of joy, creativity, and freedom. Ancient cultures wove play into ritual, dance, and song, understanding its power to renew the spirit. To play is to step out of burden, to rediscover wonder, to remember that life is more than survival. Play opens imagination, strengthens bonds, and lightens the heart. A life without play grows heavy. A life with play stays young at any age. The freedom of simplicity in living. Simplicity is clarity. Ancient sages lived simply not to reject the world, but to release its excess. Simplicity is not deprivation, but focus, the art of removing what is unnecessary so what matters can shine. In simplicity, time slows, burdens lift, and space opens for presence. The simplest lives often hold the deepest peace, reminding us that abundance is found not in more, but in the power of humble service. Service is the act of giving without need for recognition. Ancient traditions praised service as sacred, for it dissolves ego and builds connection. Service can be great or small, a word of comfort, a task completed, a kindness unnoticed. Its value is not measured by applause, but by sincerity. Through service, you remind yourself that life is shared, that joy grows when given away. In serving, you do not diminish yourself, you expand the quiet of inner peace. Inner peace is not the absence of struggle, but the calm within it. Ancient teachings sought peace not in perfect conditions, but in a steady heart. Inner peace is cultivated through patience, perspective, and letting go. It is the ability to remain centered even when storms rage outside. This peace does not mean indifference, it means resilience. To walk with inner peace is to carry your own sanctuary, a place no external chaos can touch. The light of wisdom through suffering. Suffering, though painful, often becomes the forge of wisdom. Ancient traditions saw trials not as curses, but as teachers. Through suffering, pride softens, compassion deepens, resilience strengthens. Though no one seeks pain, all who live will meet it. The question is not if, but to resist suffering is to double its weight. To learn from it is to transform it into strength. In this way, even sorrow becomes a source of life. The power of gratitude for life itself, to wake, to breathe, to see, to love. These are treasures so constant they are often forgotten. Ancient prayers often began not with requests, but with thanks for life itself. Gratitude for existence shifts perception. Suddenly, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and burdens become lighter against the miracle of being alive at all. Gratitude for life is the foundation of joy, for it turns even a fleeting moment into something sacred, the horizon of unity. Beneath differences of culture, language, and belief, all people share the same needs: love, safety, belonging, meaning. Ancient wisdom spoke of unity, not sameness, but connection. To see another as yourself is to dissolve the illusion of separation. Unity does not erase individuality, it honors it while recognizing the thread that binds all. When unity is remembered, compassion grows and division softens. Unity whispers the truth. We rise together, or not at all. The silence beyond words. At the end of all teachings, beyond every book and lesson, lies silence. Ancient masters often concluded their guidance not with speeches, but with quiet, for some truths cannot be carried in words. Silence holds what language cannot. It is the final teacher, the return to stillness from which all wisdom comes. To sit in silence is to touch eternity, to feel yourself both small and infinite, fleeting and timeless. When words end, wisdom continues, waiting in silence.